live.
All right. This is my second YouTube live ever. The first one we did on March 6th, and really talked about the reason why I created this channel. And essentially, it's about living your best life and how to do that. And wealth creation is certainly a big part. It's a controversial topic, but it's definitely a topic of interest. And so we're going to dive deep into wealth today. What is money, where it fits with your happiness and purpose, and then simple actions that you can take today that will enable you to create wealth. Kind of going back to the purpose of this channel, on March 6th live, really, I was talking about, the fact that at 26 years old, I had, thought I was doing everything right. I had, been creating wealth, doing all the things I was supposed to be doing. I had a great job, I had a wife, I had a house, I had an investment portfolio, I had all the things going from me on the outside. At least anyone looking in thought, I had all these things. The reality was I was incredibly unhappy, and kind of hit my lowest point, that rock bottom, if you will, at 27, despite having everything and had figured everything out. I had to ask myself how I got here, why I was unhappy. And really, that was the first time I think I truly started to take responsibility and accountability for my life, rather than making excuses or blaming it on something external. I was forced to ask myself, how did I get here? Why am I here? What am I doing wrong, or what do I need to do differently? And at 27, that kind of kick-started this journey to figure out what happiness was for me. It's a never-ending journey, but it's been 10 years of really just learning and growth, mistakes, figuring things out, and just again trying to figure out how to live happy and keep that kind of sustained happiness and knowing what it is. And so that's what kickstarted this channel. It's been 10 years of learning, and ultimately kind of a framework for how to live happy today, not waiting to be happy tomorrow. How do you start living happy today? And what is that framework? What are those universal truths that come together to create this framework that can really allow anyone to start living a better life today, a happier life today? So that's what this is all about. Wealth is a huge component of that, and we're going to talk about exactly why. My background is heavily on the wealth side. I went to school, I went to university for finance and economics. I have a certified financial planning designation. I worked 12 years at an investment firm, and so my background is very heavy in wealth and financial planning. And so, yes, I have the knowledge and the tools behind me and the experience to in how to create wealth. I've also created significant wealth for myself, even at a much younger age. But I think more importantly is how in the last 10 years, it's the connection of where wealth fits in to living your best life and to living happy. And I think that's a much more, we'll call it equally as valuable. You need to know how to create wealth. You need to go out there and learn how to do that. But I think even before that, you need to know why it matters and why it's so important to living your best life. And so we'll talk about all of that today. Okay, so let's dive in. And actually, the other thing as well is schools don't teach this. So it's the strangest thing. We know how important wealth is to living life. You need it for everything. You need money to buy everything. And yet schools do not teach it. And so this channel, it'll cover lots of topics, but oftentimes it's going to come back to some critical components. Your purpose and wealth is another big one. So let's dive in. Okay, so what is wealth, and does it buy happiness? That classic question. So, first off here, wealth is freedom. It's not what people think it is. So when most people think of money or wealth, what they're thinking of is the what specifically it buys, right? It's the cars, the fancy home, the material stuff. And so for that reason, because we attach money or wealth to these things, people are kind of torn on how to feel about money. Some, want to say, well, I don't, material things aren't important, and so I don't care to have money or wealth, and it drives the wrong behavior or attitude. And so I think attaching money to the wrong thing can cause you to almost avoid its importance, if that makes sense. And so when you think of money as material items, I think you have it all wrong. And so when I think of wealth, what I've kind of understood it to actually be is freedom. And there's almost three phases to creating freedom through wealth. And the first one can happen almost right away. And we'll talk exactly about the steps to take to get here. But when you think of money, it is the most common reason for people to be stressed out. It makes life incredibly difficult. If you don't have money, life is incredibly difficult. You don't have control over your life, and it's the number one reason for divorce, and it's required to get by. But most importantly, it takes up so much of our brain power every day, is just that stress about money, and simply having wealth or having control over your finances, even before wealth, just simply having control over your finances, that you are, call it, making more than you're spending. That freedom to where you know that every month you have a surplus cash flow coming in, that mental freedom alone will change everything. You will be less stressed out. You will be happier simply knowing that your financial situation, that you have control over it. So that's kind of first layer of achieving freedom with your financial situation, with wealth. The next one's huge. This is the actual time that wealth can buy for you. And so let's say I was going to offer you $10 million, no strings attached. So actually think about that for a second. I'm offering you $10 million, no strings attached. Think about how that changes your life. Think about the impact that would have on you, your family, your loved ones, people around you, and how it would change your life forever. Of course, you're going to take the $10 million. Now let's say I'm still offering you $10 million, except this time it has one condition. You're not going to wake up tomorrow. Pretty easy decision. You're not taking that money. But think about what just happened there. It's $10 million. You would do almost anything for $10 million. And yet, if you weren't going to wake up tomorrow, then you're not taking a $10 million. It could be $1 billion. You're still not taking it. Why? The why you're not taking it is because time is the most valuable resource on the planet. It's the most rare commodity. We can't get it back. We only have a very small and finite amount of time on this earth, and we actually don't even know when it ends. And so because of that, because time is so rare, it is the most valued resource on the planet. And think about today. Today, in today's world, in today's modern economy, more than ever, time is rare. Think about your 24-hour day. 8 hours is sleeping. You're left with 16 hours per day. Half of that is dedicated to a job, a 9 to 5, where you're working for someone else's dream, and that you're just going through life, going to that job. The other 8 hours that you have is for everything else you need to do. And if you have a house, a family to take care of, other obligations, by the end of it all, once you've done all the things you have to do in going to your job for someone else and taking care of the things that have to be taken care of, you don't have the energy anymore to do things for you, to live life, to live your purpose. You don't have the time for it. And so what happens is people just seek that comfort and relaxation, and they're just walking through life aimlessly. And so think about wealth as the opportunity to buy you freedom. No longer are you, waiting for retirement. If you focus on creating wealth sooner, faster, it can actually buy you time. And time being the most important resource where you can start focusing on your life and living life on your own terms. So that's the second thing that wealth does. And then the third level of freedom is freedom of opportunity. Of course, we are limited every day if we don't have the funds to do something. And frankly, a lot of people just assume they'll never have these things, right? Things are out there, whether it's just experiences or vacations or whatever it may be, opportunities. They don't believe that they're entitled to those opportunities because they'll never have wealth. And I think that's the wrong way to go about it. Wealth's in your control, and when you have it, it opens up all kinds of doors to living a life that aligns with the life that you want. And so wealth is freedom. It's not numbers in a bank account. Wealth is freedom to allow you to live your life. So does it buy happiness? No, certainly not. You need to be happy. You need to have clear conviction in your purpose and to live life in alignment with that purpose to drive your happiness. But then what wealth does is it buys the freedom so that you can live that purpose with everything you got. It opens up the doors. And so, think about it some more here. If it's creating this kind of freedom for you, mental, time, and opportunity, if it's creating that freedom, it's going to make you more of who you are. And so if you're happy today and you live with integrity to your values, wealth makes you a stronger version of you because simply you have the freedom to be you, to become a better version of you and to live life on your own terms. And so whoever you are and whatever life you want, wealth creates the freedom for you to go there and get it, to be yourself and be the best version of yourself. It's an incredible tool to do that. Now, of course, on the flip side, if you're an asshole, then unfortunately, wealth is likely to make you just a bigger one. It's going to make you more of who you are. And so the key is here that you understand your values, who you are, and you have clear conviction in your purpose, which is hopefully just to become a better version of yourself, and then in doing, live your best life and have a positive impact on the people around you. And if that's how you choose to live your life, if that's your sole purpose is to be better and be good to other people, then wealth is going to allow you to do that, to deliver on that purpose in a much bigger, broader way than you could ever realize. And so that's what wealth is. It's a catalyst to living life bigger and better in alignment with your purpose. That's what wealth is. And without it, it's hard to do that. You'll be so limited with your freedom that you will never have full control over living your best life in pursuit of that purpose. You just won't. So it's such a powerful tool in expanding on your happiness. But again, you need to start first with being happy today and knowing why you're waking up tomorrow, having that purpose. And then if you have that, wealth acts as that catalyst. So, okay, how to create wealth then? I've broken this down real simple. This is very actionable. This can change your life, but you simply just need to take the steps to do it. So I've broken it down to 5 phases of wealth creation, depending on where you're at today. It starts with simply tracking your monthly cash flow. From there, increasing that monthly surplus, that increase in the monthly cash flow that's hitting your bank account. Passive investing, active investing, and then at the end, you're really just stocking up on assets. And so we'll talk into each one, and we'll talk about exactly the steps you need to take to start creating wealth. Okay, so first of all, what is cash flow? Real simply here, it's taking what's hitting your bank account and what's leaving your bank account. So your net income, so not your gross salary or whatever it is, you want to find out how much is hitting your bank account every month. That's your net income in its simplest terms. And then what are the total dollars leaving your bank account, the expenses? So net income minus expenses equals your monthly cash flow. If your net income is higher than your expenses, you should have, you will have a positive cash flow or a surplus, meaning your bank account is going to grow month after month. So if you have $1,000 hitting your bank account every month, hopefully it's more, you have $500 of expenses, you have a $500 surplus every month. If you do nothing else with it, if you're not investing it, your bank account should be growing by $500 per month. That's the simple explanation of positive cash flow. Of course, if it's the opposite, if your net income is below your expenses, then what you have is a deficit, meaning you are losing money every month, and likely you are going into consumer debt or getting loans from family to fund your lifestyle. That is a quick recipe for a terrible life. So if you don't take anything else from this channel or from today, figure out how to get your financial situation into a place where you have at least a small surplus. You must have more money coming in than money you are spending every month. There's just no excuse to have it any other way, and it's truly a recipe for disaster if you're living in a current cash flow deficit. Not an option. Okay, so how do I track? Real simple. I mean, you can Google it to find a template, a cash flow tracker, a budget tracker, expense tracker, whatever. Google it. Or if you want to use mine, add a comment under this video, reach out with a question, or I'll send you the one I've been using for 10 years. I built it, about 12 or 13 years ago, and I used the same one for 9 or 10 years. And so it served me well, and I'm sure it'll serve you just fine. So if you want mine, just add a comment. Now, the key here is actually doing this. And so it's such a simple thing. You are simply going to track the money that you're spending. Hopefully the money hitting your bank account will be pretty easy to track. That's not the hard part. The expenses should also be really straightforward. There's really two categories. One is your actual purchases, money that you're spending on, whether it's your credit card or cash or debit, doesn't matter, whatever you are purchasing day to day, groceries and everything else. If you're going out for food, you take out, those are your purchases. The others are bills, recurring bills that you have to pay. So those are the two categories. The purchases you should be tracking every day. Real simple. If you have this spreadsheet opened up, whether it's mine or someone else's, it's just you have the whole month. Every day has its own row, and you're just essentially entering in your purchases every day. It's real simple if you have a template. You have it open, it takes you about 3 minutes, and you're going to just start, every time you make a purchase, you're adding it in there. And at the end of the month, you're looking at all your recurring bills that you've just paid, and you're adding those in as well to get your total expenses for the month. And you take your net income, and now you have a clear picture of your cash flow and whether you have a surplus or a deficit. Really is that simple. It'll hardly take you any time at all once you start doing this. And yet most people won't do it. They won't do it because they don't really understand how important this is to changing your whole life. If again, you take the step back here to understand your why. No matter what your purpose is, no matter what you're trying to achieve in life, if you're just trying to live any good life, you must create wealth to do it. You must create that freedom of stress, the freedom of time. At some point you have to retire, and the freedom of opportunity. Wealth is a requirement to living your best life, no matter what your purpose is. If you want to be good to people and have a great positive impact, you need wealth. If you want to be, it doesn't matter what you want. Wealth is required to get there. And so you need to understand how important it is. And then in particular, if you have that clear conviction in your purpose, that your purpose is to be a better version of yourself every day, and in doing, live your best life and have the greatest positive impact, then, and you know where wealth fits in on that and how it will completely change the trajectory, then the why starts to become more clear. Then doing this work should become more clear. So if you find yourself having, trouble doing this, I think you need to reset and remember why you're doing this, and try again. So now, what should happen when you start tracking and when you record this monthly surplus, if you're doing it with the right why behind it, what should happen is that, well, first things first, that mental freedom, you'll realize you have that, or at least a much improved mental freedom, as soon as you start tracking and realize that you in fact have a consistent monthly surplus. You are in control of your finances, and for that reason, you're in control of your future. If you have a positive surplus today, you are in full control of the rest of your life. And that's how important it is. And I wouldn't put it any less than that. If you are able to achieve a consistent monthly surplus, you know how to do it and you're tracking it, you can see it in front of your face, that level of confidence will immediately change how you feel day to day. You won't feel nearly as worried or stressed about money if you are proving to yourself every day and every month that you understand your finances, you know where your money is going, and your bank account is growing every month. It will change how you feel every day about the person that you are simply by doing that. Not only that, it will instill the most important characteristic of living a good life, which is discipline. Simply tracking your expenses, doing that every day because you know how important it is. You're not going to have fun in the beginning, although you will, but having that discipline of doing that work every day, and even actually what's going to happen is when you start tracking, you're automatically going to start spending money on only the things that align with your values and your purpose and what you're trying to achieve. It's going to become almost secondhand. And so, because you know you're going to have to write it down later, you're going to have to be accountable to yourself every day. So every time you go to spend money, you're going to ask yourself, do I actually want or need this? Or would I rather the satisfaction that comes from saying no, knowing I am creating my dream life today? And it's kind of a ripple effect, right? So it starts with that financial freedom and that having more confidence. And then having more confidence in yourself, that feeling grows, and more confidence in your future. You're seeing your bank account grow. It all starts to compound. And then when you also realize that pursuit of your purpose, it becomes tangible. So, right, if you're looking to create your dream life, that's your purpose, just being your best self, and you know that wealth is going to allow you to do that, you are actually looking at your wealth growing every day, every month, every time you're looking at this spreadsheet. You're seeing it happen in front of your eyes. It becomes real. You are actively making progress on your only purpose. And it becomes really powerful. And then something's going to happen where it fully makes a shift in your purpose. What's going to happen is you're going to realize that you are becoming happier when you actually say no to the dopamine hits that used to control your life. And so, I mean, this is a huge topic, and I'll cover it a little bit more later in this session. We'll cover it lots in future sessions, but people often confuse those dopamine hits with happiness. Right? Because they're so bogged down, as we talked about, with life, right? Just you're going to your day job, trying to do all the things. You are just waiting to sit on the couch and have that just comfort and watch Netflix. You are, or spending money or eating bad food, all these things that allow you to feel this moment of bliss, but are really just kind of distracting you from your day-to-day life. People confuse that dopamine, that relaxation and comfort as happiness. And so they spend their whole lives trying to live for the weekend or live for retirement, waiting to be happy. You don't even realize that's how you're living. And unfortunately, most people live this way. They are waiting to be happy. They're waiting for those moments of dopamine to be happy. And once they finally are retired and dopamine is readily available whenever they want it, they realize they're not happy because it's fake. That dopamine represents 1% of your life or less. And once you have it readily available, it loses its effect. And yet we spend our whole lives chasing dopamine. And so what will happen here if you are following this channel, if you're listening to what I'm telling you right now, if you believe in your purpose and you have conviction in it to be better, and you know that this is the springboard to making it happen, creating wealth starts with this simply tracking and creating a surplus, you're going to become addicted to saying no to all the shit that's going to steer you away from your purpose. And so it's the funniest thing. When I was, creating wealth, saying no when I was young, right? Saying no to stuff that just didn't align with me being a better person. Saying no to, going out to expensive dinners all the time, or going out for drinks all the time. Saying no to, it doesn't really matter what. Every time I said no to spending money, what I felt when I said no, and I looked at my tracking sheet of spending money that day or that week or that month, and I saw how little money I spent on things I don't need, the happiness that you feel, it's hard to explain, because you're living life with your purpose, with full integrity, which makes you proud of yourself, and you see the progress that you're making. It's this self-fulfilling and compounding effect of being obsessed with your purpose, and then saying no very quickly becomes not only easy, but it's what you want to do. You want to say no to these things because you know it just doesn't align with who you are. And so if you stick with this, if you remind yourself of why you're doing it, and you simply show that you're creating a monthly surplus, you're going to start saying no to spending money on things. In the beginning, it might be tough. You'll feel like you're having to say no, and that you're missing out on things. I didn't feel that way. People would look at me not spending money. That was the point I was trying to make earlier. When people looked at me not spending money, they thought to themselves, geez, he's just, missing out on life, not taking the time to be happy. When I knew at my core, like, that didn't faze me. I knew at my core that not spending the money was driving my happiness, that I had more pride in myself, more confidence in who I was. I knew I was living with integrity. I knew I was creating my dream life. Every time I said no, I was saying yes to me and my best life. Every time I said no. And that just started feeling better and better until it just became a habit. I only started saying yes to the things that would make me better. I started working out every day, eating healthier, tracking my finances even more, and adding more tabs to my spreadsheet to learn how to create even more wealth, use how to deepen relationships with the people around you. You start just focusing on what actually matters. And so I'm hoping for you that as you track this, keep this in mind and look for this shift in how you feel about this, because it will hopefully start with simply tracking your expenses on a spreadsheet. But I believe many of you will find that it changes how you see life. And all of a sudden, that will just feed into other areas of your life that we're going to get into here. Okay, enough of this one. So after phase one, which is just simply tracking, and hopefully we'll call it tracking and having a monthly surplus, even if it's a small amount. You need to get yourself out of a deficit. So that's all phase one. Make sure you have a consistent monthly surplus. You are making more money is hitting your bank account than that is leaving every month. Phase two, increasing that surplus. And so this will become, again, really straightforward to you. Once you're tracking it, once you have all the data that shows how much money is coming in and how much is going out and where all that money is going, increasing that surplus becomes, I would say, very intuitive. It may not be easy at first, but it will get easy because of how intuitive it is. You don't need me to tell you how to raise your income or lower your expenses, but I'll spend a few minutes doing that anyway, just to give you a kickstart. So as we talked about, cash flow, money hitting your bank account is your income, your expenses is what's leaving. The remainder, what's left in your bank account every month as additional money, is your surplus. So in order to increase this monthly surplus, well, you have two options, and I would encourage you spend time on both. One is raising that income, and the other is lowering your expenses and increasing that monthly surplus. So starting with raising income, there's only so many ways to do this. First of all, hopefully now with this purpose that you have, you're tracking, you're making money, your bank account is growing every month, you're living in alignment with your values, your purpose, you're becoming better. Well, hopefully you have the drive to raise your income, knowing what it's going to do for you. So start off with your current job. Whatever it is you're doing, do it better, do it harder. You're going to spend the time there anyway. Be the best version of yourself at work. Work harder, stay later if you think it's going to help you get a promotion, get a raise, whatever it may be. Just get after it with more purpose. And that's how this all happens here, right? So up until now, you might just be going to your day job and you hate it. Well, guess what? If you understand why wealth is so important, and you know that raising your income will change your life forever, which you should understand that it will, then all of a sudden you can actually, whatever job you have that you don't like, you'll stop focusing on the parts you don't like and you won't care. You're just going to say, I need to do what I need to do to make more money because it'll change the rest of my life. So you're going to work harder at whatever it is that you're doing. I would strongly encourage leadership skills be a huge area of focus. That's a kind of a tangent. But as we talk about increasing your current income, climbing the corporate ladder, whatever it may be, leadership skills opens up all the doors. Much more possibilities are created through the ability to lead and inspire people beyond just knowledge or skill sets on a specific topic. If your ability to lead people, now it doesn't matter the topic. And so the opportunities widen. We'll have a whole session on leadership skills in life and business and making money. That'll be a future session. But just a little reminder there that if you're in a corporate job, especially a corporate job, spend time finding a mentor, talking about you wanting to develop your leadership skills with anyone who asks, and learning how to do it. That will also change your life, not just in how to create wealth, but in everyday life as well. Again, I'll save all that for a future session. I'll have plenty more tangents, so I apologize ahead of time. Okay, and then beyond just your current job, get a second job, start a side hustle, whatever you need to do, especially if you're young and you have more time in your evenings. Rather than spending the money that you'd have to add to your tracking spreadsheet, or going out for dinner or going out all weekend, whatever it is, don't spend that money. Save it, watch your bank account grow, and spend that time, whether it's a second job, side hustle, or just learning new skills, whatever it may be. Spend the time to learn how to increase your income. I'm a huge fan of a side hustle. A second job is great, but I would say because it takes even more of your time, it needs to be pretty temporary, because now you're losing even more time on how to create more significant wealth. So a second job can work temporarily for sure, depending on your situation and what other obligations you have. But where a side hustle is different is it's something you're in control of. It's your you're piloting entrepreneurship with a side hustle. It's something that is up to you. You spend as much time as you want on it. You put in the hours that you want, and it makes you money on the side, rather than a job where, again, you're working for someone else. A side hustle will immediately open up more doors and more possibilities. And one side hustle ends up leading into something that's a better side hustle. And then ultimately it does become your entrepreneurship, a way to leave the 9 to 5. So we'll talk more about side hustles. Airbnb, for those that follow me on other accounts or know more about my background, I quit the corporate job after 12 years along with my wife, and we built an Airbnb business. So we'll talk plenty more about that in future sessions and a little bit more at the end of this. And of course, I'm biased because I'm much more knowledgeable on this specific industry and topic, but I truly believe for most people, Airbnb, short-term rentals, is an easy and incredibly easy to get into, but also the opportunity is massive to create a job that not only funds your lifestyle, but has almost limitless growth opportunity. And so If you're interested in understanding more about Airbnb or the opportunity, whether you have a full-time job or not, starting an Airbnb as a side hustle, again, send me a comment. I'll reach out, and if you want to jump on a call, we'll talk about how to start your own Airbnb business, even as a small side hustle to start. Okay, and learning specific skills. We talked about this. So again, this is preparing you to either move up in your career to increase your income, or to start that side hustle, to start entrepreneurship as your own business owner. So again, these are the ways to start raising your income today. Lowering your expenses, huge topic here. And this first one that you probably all were reading and saying why I'm wrong. Don't buy your home. If you have already, we'll talk about it. But in the beginning, in terms of the phases of wealth creation, do not buy your home. You can in the future, don't do it now. And real simply, there's all kinds of reasons. I don't want to spend another hour on this section, but remember, cash flow is a must. It's the starting point to creating wealth. Once you have that surplus coming in, your bank account is growing rapidly every month because of a surplus cash flow, everything else is possible. In taking that money, investing it into assets, starting a business, you need cash flow for every other aspect of wealth creation. You can't create wealth if you don't have any money. And what buying a home does is crushes your cash flow. It crushes it almost indefinitely, and people don't realize it. So, I mean, think about it. Once you buy a home, the property taxes that are out of your control and go up at ridiculous rates, especially today with inflation. Utilities, the same thing. You're constantly paying for utilities. The upkeep on your home, even a small home, new roof, new air conditioner and furnace, new windows, ongoing maintenance. These are costs that you're paying into. That's aside from the actual mortgage payment with the interest and principal that you're paying every month. Your cash flow, buying a home will devastate your ability to increase your monthly cash flow. And for that reason, don't do it. If you can avoid it, if you haven't yet, stay renting. And it also simply allows you, even gives you more time. Even owning a home itself, you have to spend more time on the upkeep of your home. For so many reasons, owning a home, buying a home, especially when you're young and you're trying to create wealth, is the exact wrong thing that you should be doing. Don't even consider it. Rent a place as small as you like to keep the maintenance down. Low monthly rent is capped, monthly rent typically in most places, but it allows you to focus on creating cash flow. And once you have significant cash flow, yeah, sure. If buying a home, if the expenses that you're paying to own that home are a relatively small percentage of your cash flow anyway, sure, go nuts, own a home. But until you have significant surplus and you have everything else in your life going the way you want it to go, do not buy a home. I didn't even mention the cost of down payment and closing costs. We're talking the opportunity cost of putting that 50 grand, 100 grand, whatever the amount is, into your home. You're not going to see that again. And what you could have done with that money to help create more cash flow. Anyway, don't buy a home is the point. We'll have a whole segment on this topic of how to avoid crushing your cash flow, and buying a home is one of them. Second, avoid impulse buying for dopamine hits. We just talked about this on the other slide. This will come naturally, I think, but it'll come naturally as you start to track and as you actually have a strong why to create cash flow. But dopamine hits they're not happiness. They don't align with your purpose. You're doing it to escape your everyday life, and it's going to crush your ability to create wealth. Lastly, this is just a huge life hack in terms of maintaining. So maybe not just lowering your expenses, but keeping your expenses constant as your income goes up. So this is critical, and it's frankly easy to do, is so long as you don't care about keeping up with everyone else and the status symbol of what other people say or think about you. If you're so in tune with who you are and you know what you're after, it doesn't matter what other people think. But unfortunately, what happens is, let's say you get out of school. That's the easiest place to start. You're making 50 grand, just to keep numbers simple, and your expenses, usually people start off, smart. Most people, and their expenses are somewhat less than their income. Call it $45,000, $48,000 it's usually pretty tight. So call it 48,000, and you're making 50. That's hitting your bank account. You have a small surplus. What 90% of the population does? Well, first of all, they've bought a home. And or if they haven't yet, they're going to. And essentially what happens is, as they make more money, they continue to increase their lifestyle expenses. They buy a nicer car with a higher car payment. They spend money on more expensive groceries, or going out for dinner more often with friends, or getting expensive golf memberships, whatever it may be. As people make more money, they also spend all of that money on things they don't actually want or need. Certainly that doesn't drive any happiness. It's like short-term moments of, and what they find is, even if they're making 100 grand a year now their expenses are 95, 100, and usually people find themselves getting into trouble because they bought a home, didn't realize how much costs could go up, and so actually you end up in a deficit. Now you're making 100, 110 grand a year, costs of homes go up as they are today, and now you're making 110 grand a year, you're making lots of money, and yet your expenses are 130 grand, and you're figuring out how you can cut back to keep your home. This is what happens to normal, hardworking people constantly. They're working hard, their incomes are going up year after year, and yet their expenses are growing at the same rate. And then something happens where now their expenses actually surpass their income. They have a family that relies on them, and now the stress of your finance. This is most people. This is not a disaster story. This is most common amongst most people. This is how they think about money, or frankly, they don't. They think of money as something to spend now, and unfortunately, it's a scary thing. So, keeping expenses constant, life hack. You make 50 grand a year and your expenses are 48. Fine, so be it. Do you know how fast your bank account's going to grow if you just simply keep your expenses where they are? Live in the same place, keep the same car, don't spend more money, spend the same. Your income grows to 100 grand. That is $50,000 per year in savings alone, aside from any investment or any money you're making in other ways. Just by keeping your expenses where they are, now your annual surplus is over $50,000. And all you had to do was not spend more money. Not even spending less, or finding, you're not getting crazy with not spending money. You are simply choosing not to add to your lifestyle expenses yet. And the result can be far beyond anything that you're thinking. Okay, so number 3, passive investing. So essentially, you have your monthly surplus now, hopefully. I mean, maybe it's growing based on phase number 2. If you found ways to increase your income and keep your expenses down, and now all of a sudden that monthly surplus can become relatively significant. It could be, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 per month, or more than that, depending on how aggressive you get with making more money. And now that sum is growing, and you need somewhere to put it. So obviously you don't want it just sitting in your bank account growing. You want that money working for you. And so phase 3 is a pretty simple one. The whole idea of it being passive investing is exactly that. It's passive. It shouldn't take too much of your time, and it should be going into a safe place and liquid. And so I'll talk about this real quick here. First things first, you want to invest the entire monthly surplus. You may hear rules of thumb. It used to be save 10% of what you make, and that number has gone up, by the way, in today's life. But my preference is don't just come up with some random arbitrary number. It's kind of you do it in reverse. You spend what you need to spend, and we talked about how you can create better habits to spend less. So just simply spend less, and whatever you have left over every month, put that all into your investments. Don't leave it in your bank account where it's going to tempt you to spend it. No, put it away into bank accounts, investment accounts, where it's not there for you anymore. It is there for a future opportunity, is what it's there for. And so by doing that, it does so many things. Again, you'll be less likely to spend it, less tempted to spend it. You don't even consider it as money that you have. When something comes up, like, I don't have that money. You have it in an investment account, but that's not what it's there for. It's there for an opportunity that actually aligns with things that you want in life. And so put the whole amount, not some random number, put it all into your investment accounts and watch how quickly it grows. Now, in terms of where to invest, this session is not about specific investing strategies. We will, of course, have a session on that. But to keep things simple, you probably want two types of investment accounts that you are actively contributing to. And the best way to do it is just make it automatic. Take the monthly surplus that you have and just put it in equal proportions into these. And so, sorry, not equal. The first amount that you're going to put in is typically a long-term investment account. In Canada, that's an RSP, and you'll put an amount in here, call it enough to benefit from employer benefits. There's often matching. So if you put $10,000 into your RSP in a year, your company might match it up to $10,000. So that's probably the right amount to put in, at least to take full advantage of employer benefits. But the one thing about these long-term wealth accounts is that they're not really accessible in the short term. They're designed to take money out, way far down the road in retirement. And so don't put too much in there because, again, your cash flow, you want access to most of your cash today and into the next years of your life to take advantage of opportunities. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. And so a relatively small amount into the long-term wealth creation investment account. And then the remainder, hopefully a much larger portion, is going into something that is accessible for you when you actually need it. Again, don't be tempted by it, but a better account in Canada anyway is a TFSA for the short term. And the only reason for it is that you can access it without any tax penalties, whereas an RSP is not the case. So TFSA you can access anytime, and that way it is there for you when the opportunity becomes available. So that's passive investing. In terms of what to actually invest in, I mean, talk to your advisor at the bank. But the best thing, don't let them talk to you anything weird. You want to put it into a diversified quality investment. So that's an ETF, most typically. Put it into a broad-based ETF, blue chip, paying dividends, this kind of thing. Talk to your advisor, but nothing risky, and just put it in something that you can access when you need it. Okay, so that's passive investing. So now at this point you have created that monthly surplus, and you are actively and frankly aggressively contributing that to your investment accounts. And maybe I'm going to pause there before going to phase number 4, just to share my wealth creation process, because this is exactly what I did. I'm not pulling this out of thin air. Obviously, I have a big background in wealth creation and finance, but this is also the steps that I took. And so, and again, this is real simple. I wasn't making crazy amounts of money. I worked a corporate job. I had an entry-level job to start, like most people do, and I started to move up the corporate ladder. But I did all of these things. I tracked from day one. I tracked my expenses and my revenue, and I wanted that surplus, and then I wanted it to grow. So I moved up the corporate ladder, and for the most part, I kept my expenses constant. And so because I was saying no to stuff that I just didn't care to spend money on, that monthly surplus grew crazy fast. And my bank account was growing at an incredible rate that people looking in would have had no idea the size of the investment portfolio that I had as a 24-year-old, 26-year-old. And then the compounding effect, right? Because as that surplus grows, the money in your bank account and your investment accounts grow even faster. And so it just kept compounding. And of course, that progress, seeing the results, causes you to get even more creative and to learn more about how to create wealth. And it was just a giant compounding effect. And so, but these are the simple things that I did. I tracked, I increased my surplus by not raising my expenses and not spending where I didn't want to, and then I invested it all into investment accounts. Got to the, fast forward, numbers of years, this is what freed up my wife and I to quit our corporate jobs. And so, this was just 2.5 years ago when we quit our 9 to 5, but creating the wealth before that is what allowed us to do that without it taking any real risk. That's pretty unique. And so people didn't realize that, the wealth that we had. We live in a nice home, but it's certainly not extravagant. We drive very basic cars because, again, we keep our expenses down. Even after creating so much wealth, we kept our expenses down. And so no one knew looking in the wealth that we had created. And so when we quit our jobs, when we just, quit to start a business, both of us, with 2 young kids, I should add, people were concerned, family, friends, they're asking questions like, how do you know it's going to make money? And what if you don't? How are you going to pay your monthly bills? And the reality was we had focused on creating so much wealth for ourselves because of the freedom that it provides, which includes not only do we not have to worry or think about money in that way, but we had the ability to quit our jobs and not even worry if our business was going to be successful in the short term. We knew we could live off of our wealth for a very long time without even worrying about whether the business was making us money. That kind of freedom is so rare, and yet we achieved it without doing anything special other than having good habits. Following these first 3 steps is all we did. And then as I mentioned, as you're doing that, you will find that you are getting more creative to learn more about wealth creation and how to grow it even faster. And so, passive investing for me turned into more active investing on how to make more with the amounts that we had invested, and refinancing properties, margin investing for our stocks. And we were able to get more aggressive because of all the work that we had done. We were able to get more aggressive because we had way bigger surplus, so we could take more risk. We also had way bigger investment portfolios that allowed us to take more risk. We also became way more knowledgeable on the topic of investing because of the time we spent there. And so it's a compounding effect. You just need to start. It doesn't come, you don't have to have a degree in finance to be able to do this. You just simply need to start tracking. The rest will happen. Know why you're doing it. Have that as your motivator to create that discipline, to start tracking, to start creating that surplus, to start investing. Just start. And the rest will happen. I promise you. You just have to do the work. There was nothing special on here. I didn't say, and invest in this company, or it's nothing. It's just habits. These habits will guarantee wealth creation as long as you do it. There's no way around it. And so that's how I live my life. It's not about speculating on whether something is going to work. Thinking about some future outcome and hoping something works. It's about instilling the habits, becoming the person today that makes the result inevitable, if that makes sense. You aren't hoping to get there and wondering which tactic or strategy is going to get there and what if it doesn't work. Or life doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to worry about the future and wonder the what. You just need to become the person today that is going to simply live this life. And that's instilling habits with your health, with your finances and wealth, and with your relationships and living with integrity. It's these simple core fundamental things that you're choosing to live for yourself today, to live your best life for you and others, that this will just simply happen. So you don't worry about, that it's something special or that you won't be able to do it for X. No. It's all bullshit. If you simply decide today that you care enough about this, that you're going to start doing the work, the rest will take care of itself. Okay, that was a little side story there, which feeds us into phase 4, entrepreneurship. This might seem like kind of a random one, very specific, and it's here for a reason. Entrepreneurship is that it's your chance to do so many things when it comes to wealth and creating that freedom, right? So up until entrepreneurship, when you're having to work for someone else and for their dream because of the wealth it's creating for them, you're putting in your time at that job for mostly people who aren't even working anymore, who own that company and who are benefiting from your labor. So they are the ones that are sitting back without needing to work a day job and creating ridiculous amounts of wealth. That's what you're doing when you're working at a job. And don't get me wrong, jobs are incredibly important, and most of us will need to work jobs for a decent amount of time. But the goal for me is to make progress towards leaving that 9 to 5. And instead of waiting for retirement, the way to do that sooner is through entrepreneurship. And it does so much more than just creating wealth faster. And so maybe that's the better place to start is what this does for Tiffany and I. When we decided to quit our jobs, we had wealth, and we also even had great jobs that we frankly enjoyed as far as a job goes, and we were making really good money at this point. In fact, we were probably just about to start making substantially more at that start of our at that phase of our career. We were in our mid-30s, taking on more and more senior leadership type of roles where the compound effect on your salary starts to go up. And so we're actually in a place where if we continue to work our day job, if we made the decision to stay there, we were going to be making a lot more money fast, with quite high certainty that that's what would happen. And so quitting our jobs was not done to make more money. It was for the freedom. It was that next phase of wealth and what it does for you, right? We talked about the mental freedom first. So we had achieved that through our first 10, 12 years. We created wealth. We weren't having to worry about money or think about money. And we were living our best life. But you get to a point where the next phase of living your best life is to create more freedom. And so quitting our jobs was that. It was to have freedom and control over our future. There was no guarantee that our business was going to be successful, and certainly how successful, or whether we'd make more in that, with our new business than we would at our jobs. It wasn't about that. It was, we had created the opportunity for ourselves by creating wealth to now create that freedom as well. And I don't even just mean freedom of actual time. When we're starting a business, it's usually even more hours than you're working in your day job, but simply having that freedom to spend the time where we want to spend it, and having that kind of control over your life, business, and how it all fits and works together, working when you want, how you want, spending time with your family, where you want, how you want, not having to get permission from anyone else. That type of freedom immediately makes you happier. If you're not having to be somewhere every day of your life, pretty much, aside from your evenings and weekends, you don't realize the effect that has on you until you don't have to be somewhere. You no longer have to show up at the same time every day. You can work on your schedule. Even if that's more hours, it doesn't change anything about how it makes you feel when you are in that much control over your life and where you spend your time. And so entrepreneurship is phase 4 because of how it connects in with your purpose, your happiness, creating that freedom, and the level of personal growth that comes with it. Nothing is harder than taking a risk on yourself to build a business. The challenges that you will face every day and week, the emotional roller coaster that you're on, that you have to navigate, nothing will expedite your path for personal development than becoming an entrepreneur and taking a risk on yourself to create your future and to create wealth without the support and security of a day job. And so this was such I probably wouldn't have had this on the list before I became an entrepreneur. I didn't realize how important it was. and that it wasn't just for certain people, certain types of people were entrepreneurs. I think that that's all nonsense. People are scared to take the leap, and I get that, but the reality is, becoming an entrepreneur gives you that freedom, and I think it's something that everyone's already working towards it, right? I mean, we're all working towards at least retirement, and when you're thinking about retirement, what happens there is there's enough money coming in from your investments or from the government through pensions, etc., where you are now able to live your life free. We're all working towards that time when we can be free. And entrepreneurship is simply something that allows you to do that sooner than retirement. And it allows you to have that freedom today. Yeah, you still need to work, but what people also don't realize is that you don't actually want to retire to have nothing to do. It's the opposite. You want purpose, and so entrepreneurship gives you both. It gives you some clear purpose and freedom at the same time to become your best self. And so if it's something that you've never thought of before, don't rule it out as one of the phases of your own journey of wealth creation. That becoming an entrepreneur is, and it's not only that, it's also way easier than it was even 10, 20 years ago. With social media and other technology that's available for you today as an entrepreneur, you can immediately reach your target audience no matter what industry you're getting into. Creating a business today, a scalable business that makes you very wealthy, is way easier today than it was 20 years ago. And whereas landing a secure job and keeping a secure job is getting more and more difficult. So don't rule it out. And as I mentioned, I'm biased, but the short-term rental space, having an Airbnb business provides. It's such an easy way to get into the entrepreneurial world, and also the opportunities are endless. So if you want to learn more about that, put in a comment and let's chat. Phase 5. This is the shortest segment here. I mean, at this point, you have wealth, you have significant cash flow, you've been doing your passive investing into your investment accounts, and now is where the opportunity is to invest in more illiquid assets like real estate, other businesses, and things like it. And so I'm not saying don't buy rental properties, I'm saying wait to buy them. Rental properties, obviously I'm in real estate. I love rental properties, but there's a time for it. And the time to buy a rental property is when cash flow is no longer a concern. You have significant cash flow, which changes your life today. Buying rental properties or other illiquid investments that don't generate cash flow and your money is hard to access, that type of investing is done for long-term wealth creation. It's done, so that you have wealth when you retire. And it's also a safe place to put your money, so it's not sitting in a bank account. So this type of investing should be the very last thing you do on your journey to create wealth. And yet, of course, it's such a hot topic. People look to buy real estate as almost the first, as soon as they've saved up enough money, they buy real estate. Well, that cash just disappeared, and that property doesn't provide you any cash flow. So you're still stuck working your 9 to 5 because your money is tied up and it's not doing anything for you other than for the very long term. And so don't confuse yourself. Rental properties are a great investment if you have significant cash flow and ideally your own business generating that cash flow already. This is the last thing that you should do. And then, of course, yes, owning real estate can be an incredible way to create compounded growth of your net worth over time. But it doesn't change your life today, and so don't forget about that. That's most of the session for today. This is a recap on the 5 phases. Something I'll touch on one more time here was, I mentioned don't buy a home. And also don't buy an expensive car. And if you already did, try to sell it. I know it'll suck, and people will say, try not to care about what people think. But if you have high monthly payments on your car for a 5 or 7 year lease, that again will crush your financial future. And so don't hold on to it just because you don't want to hear from other people and essentially show people that you made a mistake. No, own that mistake. You bought an expensive car, you're realizing that was not the right thing for yourself and for the future that you want. It's keeping you cash strapped. Sell your car, even for less than it doesn't matter. That's a sunken cost. Sell the fucking vehicle. And so, sorry, that was a tangent. Car and home are obviously the two biggest detractors from your ability to increase your monthly cash flow. And so there's just the two things you want to steer away from in the early phases of creating wealth. So car is an easy, obvious one. The house. Okay, so again, if you haven't bought a house yet, probably don't. Rent. That keeps your expenses crazy low and saves you time from managing the freaking household. So rent your property, don't buy it. An option, and I still suggest, renting first and starting there. But an option is if you want to buy a home, find a way to keep the down payment really low. And if you can get money from your parents for buying a home, fantastic, do that. But the idea is, if you're going to buy a home, the plan better be to Airbnb every room in that house, and you're actually only going to live in essentially one room of the house, focused on you, your wealth, your health, raising your income, tracking your finances. You're going to focus on you, not the status. And so buy the home, sure, rent out every other room in the home as an Airbnb. And if you do that, you might actually find that your living expenses are free. So you can rent a place for a couple grand a month or whatever the cost is wherever you live. Or if you're able to buy a place, and if you're able to get a loan from family or not friends, get a loan from your parents to buy the home, now you can actually live rent free because the income coming in from your Airbnb of that same property is actually paying for all the costs. If you can do that, that's a great strategy. It's still a consideration because if you have to come up with that down payment and closing cost, that is a huge opportunity cost. But again, I support it if it's being done as an Airbnb, also because of the skill set that gives you. If you are learning how to run an Airbnb at your own property, it's going to open up so many doors. And so definitely an option. The other option is to do the same thing, except don't buy the place. Rent a home, get the landlord's permission to sublet parts of the home or the whole home when you're not there. That is the ideal solution. So if for some reason you need to buy a home, I suggest not doing it. Let's be clear. I don't want to sound wishy-washy. If you haven't bought a home yet, don't buy one. That down payment is too much of an opportunity cost, and the overall time and money you're going to spend on maintaining this home is too much. The impact that it'll have on your entire life is just too much. And so instead, if you haven't purchased a home yet, rent, and you may even consider, if you're going to learn Airbnb, rent a nicer, bigger place, rent out the rooms of that place or the whole home when you're not there. You're going to end up living rent free or even have a cash surplus on the place that you live. And now you can really expedite your cash flows. So I've said it a few times, but if you're interested in learning more about how to do this, how to use the new world of short-term rental, that whole industry, using the apps that exist like Airbnb and Vrbo that just give you it's the easiest way to make money today is through Airbnbs. Anyone can do it. So message me or put a comment that you want to learn more about how to start an Airbnb side hustle. And this side hustle with this life hack, renting the home that you live in and subletting parts of it to make sure you're living rent free. Think about the increase to your monthly surplus, your monthly cash flow. If you don't have any costs of rent or mortgage, your cash flow should be incredible. Even if you're not making that much money, your bank account is going to grow at a ridiculous rate. Meanwhile, you're going to learn an incredible skill that could likely turn into your entrepreneurship journey like it was for us. huge life hacks. So I wanted to end this live session with that. And that's it for today. Go out there, get it, earn more, spend less, create some wealth, live happy.